My name's Scott Warwick, and we are going to have a lot of fun for the next hour and 15 minutes or something like this. Put together what I think is a very important program. I got a lot of stuff that I love to give away on this. My absolute passion is helping people have a healthy brain. And when I was talking to Rick about, job searching and things like this, and I'll tell you, I've been there, and it's not a vacation, is it? No,
No.
I love the, oh gosh. And I saw this graphic. I thought this was absolutely perfect. It's panic mode all the time. All right. And as we look through this stuff, you're going to see how dangerous that can be for you and what to do about it. Now, a couple things. If you go to my website, there it is, scottwarwick.com, and I am affectionately referred to as the brain guy, which I kind of like. I got introduced that way once, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I like that. So I fashioned my logo after it. I do monthly lunch and learns for free. Every month, we talk about your brain. We talk about being tolerant people. We talk about all these things that will absolutely destroy your brain and give you Alzheimer's. Yes. Distress, massive chronic ongoing distress will give you Alzheimer's. So don't do that. And we're going to talk about chemical management. And if you go to my website, scottwarwick.com, hit free resources. It's really easy to find where the free stuff is because it says free resources. And you click onto that and you hit the lunch and learns, listen away. There are hours and hours of educational material of much more than what we're going to talk about in here today. Okay, so, and everything we're going to talk about today is from my latest book, Healing the Human Brain. Now, let me just ask you, throw it out to the experts. Is looking for a job stressful?
Absolutely.
What is it? What stresses you?
The unknown.
Yeah, certainly.
Not controlling your destiny and your timeline.
Exactly. And I love this because I'm talking to professional people who prepared your whole life to have a career, and then all of a sudden something happens and beyond your control, and there you are. And I will tell you, I have 3 college degrees, and I'll tell you the reason why is I got my undergraduate degree because that's what everybody did coming out of college in the 70s, and I couldn't get a job. There were more people than jobs. And you might remember those days, early 80s. So what the heck? I'm unemployed anyway. So I'm going to go back and get my master's degree. So I went back and got my master's degree to try to shore up and get a better job. And I went from crappy job to crappy job. And I was in human resources. And I thought, well, I'm going to go to law school. It was not to practice law. I did not want to litigate. I had to be better than a lot of folks because the baby boomers were right in front of me and they had the job. I'll tell you, my gut still clenches up over this stuff. Okay, now let me ask you, anybody here have trouble sleeping?
Sometimes.
Okay, got good. Okay, because we're going to look at a lot of this stuff. Now, here's where we're going. Is your brain important?
Yes.
Of course.
And now freeze right there. This is like an age thing. Who knows who this guy is?
First name Marty.
Marty Feldman. Oh yeah, young Frankenstein. Oh yeah. This joke is lost on everybody under the age of 30. You know, they just lost on it. But let me tell you, it's amazing. I'll do this. I was down in San Antonio, Bartha, down in your neck of the woods, and I got these reviews back. Oh, this is really interesting. And some of the people said, but I don't know how this helps me in my job. Okay, I think it's pretty straightforward. You need your brain to do your job. It's really that simple. Your body is really nothing but a transport system for your brain. That's really what it is. Your brain is who you are. Let me describe what a normal, healthy brain is. A normal, healthy brain is Betty White. Betty White, okay? Easy going. Now, I can tell you, she was one tough nut. My aunt knew Betty White. And I can tell you, you don't mess with Betty. Great sense of humor. Did not go from 0 to 60 with her temper. was not hypersensitive, those are all symptoms of brain damage. And I do a lot of coaching. I just took on another company and I'm going to be coaching a lot of folks in there. And I'll tell you, as I sit there and listen to them, the folks with ADD just can't sit there and just can't pay any attention. Their attention's all over the place. They got to get better blood flow. All of my clients, I talk to them about what we're talking in here today, because you cannot control your ego and emotion, which is what we call emotional intelligence, with a damaged brain. And let me tell you right now, 80% of everybody you know who has prescription drug coverage is on psychiatric medications. Now, I am not bashing psychiatric medications. I actually think more people should be on them. And I applaud somebody who's trying to get help for themselves. I truly do. But have you ever noticed that people are on medications, psychiatric medications, and they work for a while? And what psychiatric medications do is they suppress the symptoms. They don't heal the brain, they suppress the symptoms. But we keep treating our brains like soccer balls, okay? And 4, 5, 6 years later, they got to up the meds because the meds don't work anymore. Anybody ever see that? Somebody's got to increase their meds? Yeah. It's because they're taking the meds are working, but they keep bashing their brains in. And if you live like the average American, you will kill 85,000 brain cells a day. That means you're doomed. You're doomed. That's what it means. You're doomed. But if you do what we're talking about in here, you eat right, you get these good stress chemicals in your body that we're going to talk about, all these things. You're going to grow 100,000 new neurons every month. And each of those you have baby stem cells in your brain right now. We used to think you were born with all the neurons that you'll ever have. That is not true. You actually grow 100,000 new brain cells every month, and each one of those can grow 10 to 100 sprouts. You can rewire your brain with 1 million connections every month. Now, how many people here are good in math? Yeah. Talking to you, look who I'm talking to. Okay, really, come on. Much better than I am. You understand exponential mathematics. 1 million on top of 1 million, on top of 1 million, on top of 1 million across 72 months. That's millions and millions. It's exponential, doesn't it? They grow on each other because those sprouts go sprouts. Okay, so you take care of your brain. Now, is this the norm? Isn't this how we disagree with each other these days? Isn't this what it is? Okay, and I'll tell you, I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care if you're Republican. How many people in here remember a day when Democrats and Republicans could work together and they could disagree? Yeah, I remember Nixon. Okay, now that's kind of a running joke on itself there, but I remember in 1968 when Humphrey lost to Nixon. Okay, and the teacher, now this will date me, the teacher brings in the black and white TV with the big rabbit ears, okay, and had some kid move the rabbit ears who's probably getting radiation from the TV, I don't know, and Humphrey is there and he's congratulating the president and that he's going to do everything he can to help the president. And I'm like, you just lost this big race of your life. And I turned to my teacher, I'll never forget this, Mrs. Hunkins, big beast of a woman, okay? And I'll tell you, in those days, you got out of line, man, you got a smack in the head. I mean, there was no pussyfooting around. They would just, they would beat the Jesus into you. They really did. And at Easter, she would read the Bible. Now, is this a different time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, she looked at me and I said, I'd be really upset. Why isn't he angry? And I'll never forget this. I'm 62 years old now, and I remember this like it was yesterday. He's a gentleman. Isn't that it? Our total sense of decorum is gone. If you say something that someone doesn't like, regardless of your intent, you get canceled. If you say something that the other side doesn't like, they smack you. Okay, no. And this is what I do with employers. No, this is unacceptable because this is what's happening in your gut. When your gut tightens up, you are releasing a massive amount of adrenaline and cortisol. And this is what we call fight or flight. I don't want you to think of stress and distress or anything. I want you to think of chemicals. Flooding your body with high levels of adrenaline and cortisol is bad for you. It's caustic. A little bit of adrenaline and cortisol, that's great. That's what we get when we ride roller coasters. Go bungee jumping. That's parachuting. That's what you get. But what if you stayed on a roller coaster for 3 hours? You'd have a stroke and die. That's what would happen to you. Okay, so this is what's happening in your body. Now, here's the kicker. When your car won't start, when you lose your phone, you're going to release cortisol and adrenaline in your body. Okay, now 5,000, 8,000 years ago, Fred Flintstone would run that off, or he would fight it off. We don't do that. We go sit on the couch and drink a beer. Okay, when it's a human, or when you're in battle, maybe in Kandahar, our soldiers, or when you are sitting there stressing and worrying about this job search, because that is threatening your survival. You release 3 times the cortisol and adrenaline. 3 times of this caustic material. And here's the danger for your brain. 20% of that's going to go to your brain. Now, really get this. Your brain, all of us, makes up about 2% of our body weight. That's it, 2%. But 20% is going to go to your brain. That is very disproportionate. Your brain is the first organ to go. It's the first. If you have an upset stomach because of stress, if you break out in a rash because of stress or something like this. Actually, does anybody know why you break out in a rash when you're full of distress? Your body's inflaming. You have two immune systems. One are those little T cells that come out and eat all the pathogens in your body. The other one is inflammation. If you twist your ankle, it'll inflame, right? Well, your body's inflaming to keep out the pathogens. When you fill your body with massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol, your hair can fall out. You can break into a rash. You can get intestinal problems. Okay, you can get neck problems, vertebrae problems. That is the #1 threat to your heart. It's worse than smoking. And 20% of that's going to go to your brain. Okay, you're starting to see this chemical management is really important. And from Harvard, they got a pretty good medical school, I think. They're pretty good at most things, okay? They say it's your #1 health threat. Nothing else is close, nothing. Now, I want you to tie that into how we treat each other these days. Are you starting to see why 80% of everybody is on psychiatric medications? Are you starting to see why our mass shootings have doubled in the last 5 years? We are averaging 1.8 mass shooting every day in America, every day. It's insane. And it's because we're going nuts. 80% of all of the trips to the doctor's office are distress related. I'll tell you, in this case, see why I like to talk about this stuff? I want you to get those distress chemicals, which is cortisol and adrenaline, out every day and replace them with good stress chemicals. You will never, ever not have stress, except for when you're dead. There's something to look forward to, okay? Once you're dead, no stress, okay? Believe me, nobody cares if your bills are paid when you're dead. It's somebody else's problem now, okay? I want you to replace your stress with good stress, okay? Now, smoking. I always love this because anybody here ever quit smoking? Any quitters? Oh, okay. Scott. Oh, that's a good name. Scott. Okay. Why'd you quit? Oh, I should assume you got a mic. Oh, okay.
Bad for my health. Finally figured it out.
Okay. Good for you. Good for you. Okay. Wonderful. Smart move. Smart move. Smoking has a mortality factor of 1.6. What's that mean? It means if you smoke, you have increased your chance of premature death by 60%. So you can add years to your life by not smoking. However, chronic ongoing distress, particularly anything that threatens your survival, like going to war, like working with a bully, okay, has a mortality factor of 2. Everybody get that? Can do the math, right? Mortality factor of 2, it doubles your chance of premature death. It's 40% worse. It would actually be healthier for you to work with a smoker than to work with a bully. Okay, now, we've all experienced brain damage, all of us. Anybody here ever forget stuff, or when you get flustered and frustrated that you just can't remember, can't think? I mean, yeah, okay. Did you ever wonder why that is? Okay, here it is. Now,
Oh. God, I muted you. I'm sorry.
oh, that's no problem. Okay, now this is the center of your brain, and this is really easy, okay? Neurologists like you to think this is complicated so they can bill $2,000 an hour. No. Think of Star Trek. The middle of your brain is like the Starship Enterprise. And you see those 2 little red balls? Those are your amygdalas. Okay, now that's your fight or flight system. That is your fight or flight response right there. Those 2 little balls on the ends of the engines, they sit behind your eyeballs and above your ears. They control everything. Now, we didn't even know they were there until 1992. Now, think about this. We could not have had this discussion 25 years ago, because it took us another 8, 9, 10 years to figure out what in the heck those 2 little knobs do. In 17 thousandths of a second, in order to keep Fred Flintstone alive, those things can kick in and they control your body and off you go. Okay, that's lightning. And when you do that, you flood your body with adrenaline and cortisol. That's your fight or flight response. And 20% is going to go to your brain. Okay, now, you see those little fingers? That is a neuron right there. That's 1 neuron. And you see those little fingers? That's how you catch thoughts. So those little fingers, and they feel like butter. Your brain feels like soft room temperature butter. It is very fragile. It's the most fragile organ in your body. Now think about it, those little dendrites. And you see the hippocampus that sits right behind your amygdalas. They're actually right buttressed up against your amygdalas. Your hippocampus, one of the functions is it's your short-term memory transmitter. Now think about how this design, really kind of a flawed design. Your short-term memory sits right next to your fight or flight response. So when you go into panic mode with fight or flight, your hippocampus that's filled with all those little buttery dendrites are going to be soaked in gasoline. And everybody knows if you took soft room temperature butter and poured gasoline on it, you'd burn those fingers right off. That is why we lose our short-term memory. We treat our brains like soccer balls. And this is why Betty White had short-term memory right up until she died at almost 100 years old. Okay, the neurons in your brain, now hang on, they got a life expectancy of 120 years. 120 years, folks. You should never lose your short-term memory, ever, ever. This crap about, oh, I'm getting older. Well, how old are you? Oh, I'm 50 years old. You're not even halfway there. You're not. Do you ever wonder why people lose their short-term memory but keep their long-term? When you sleep at night, you transfer short-term memory, which is right here with all the gasoline, to the back of your brain, all back in through here, where there's no gasoline. It's away from all the chemicals. That's why people, like my dad, can't remember where he was an hour ago, but he remembers 50, 60, 80 years ago just fine. Okay? So I'll tell you, don't do that. You should have your short-term memory, just like Betty White did, right up until she dies, right up until you die. Because elbows wear out, they're mechanical, okay? Knees wear out, hips wear out, teeth wear out. Nothing in your brain moves. Nothing. It's all chemical and electrical. People don't live to be 120. Okay? That's how your brain's designed. Now, If you could damage your short-term memory, could you damage the rest of your brain? Oh, yeah. Let me just clue you in. I got started on this because my oldest son was born in 1993. And soon after that, maybe 6, 7 years later, he was diagnosed with something they called Asperger's autism. All of the doctors we went to, now understand these doctors, very, very educated, pompous asses. All of them told us, oh, nothing you can do about that. The brain doesn't rewire. It's the way he's wired. There's nothing you can do about it. If it was chemical, we could control it more with medications. But this is just the way he's going to be for the rest of his life. These were $400 and $500 an hour educated, board certified psychiatrists that I had to pay cash. Everything they told me was wrong. And we were talking about the Amen clinics. So a friend of mine turned me on to the Amen clinics. And so I started doing my own research into neuroscience. And I discovered there was a huge battle at the turn of the century between the neuroscientists and the psychiatrists and neurologists. And let me tell you right now, the guys in the white lab coats are going to win every time. And if you want to know what's going on cutting edge, you go to the scientists. So I took him in 2006, had his brain scanned. It was a mess. So we changed his diet. We changed the water he drinks, all kinds of therapies, flew back to Reston, Virginia to have a follow-up scan in 2008. His brain was about 15% rewired. His coordination was 800% better. Okay. And my wife at that time said, oh, while we're there, you're getting a scan too. I said, no, I'm not gonna do that. I mean, we're here for Michael to get this. And she goes, no, you're nuts. You're getting a scan. You're nuts, or you're not coming home. Now, how many people, you got somebody in your life who will tell you what's what? If not, you should go rent one. Okay. We should do that. It's like rent a wife that comes over and, yells at you. Because I'll tell you, now, let me show you these scans. I got a scan in 2008, raging post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. And everybody knew but me. Okay. So we got on our horse, Michael and I, and just to give you some hope here, we got back to Columbus, changed our diet, lifestyle, everything. I fired clients who were too difficult. In 2020, we went and got our follow-up scans. His brain was about 75% completely rewired. Graduated from Ohio State with honors and went on to get his master's degree in psychology from Roosevelt University in Chicago with a 3.91 grade point average. Took a kid with Asperger's autism, dropped him in the middle of Chicago by the Buckingham Fountain and left him there. And he just thrived. Okay. His scan is about 75% clear. My scan in 2020 is about 85% cured. Now, reading these scans is real easy. And this is not an MRI. An MRI will look inside your brain, and it's an X-ray, very crystal clear X-ray. It's looking for structural damage. That's an MRI. Like if you X-ray somebody's arm and it's broken, it doesn't matter if they're dead or alive. That arm will look broken. An MRI looks the same on a live person as a dead one. Okay. Now, this is very different. This is a nuclear SPECT scan. So they inject you with a radioactive isotope, about the same amount that you would get with a dental X-ray, enough radiation, and it makes your brain glow. And we can watch you think. So we're looking for spots that burn too hot. Those are spots that are in bright red. They burn about 20% hotter than the rest of the blue. The blue is your baseline temperature. And we're looking for maybe spots that don't burn hot enough. Okay. Now, your brain is like a car engine. All right. So just having said that, to simplify neurology, you don't want your engine running hot. Now, you do want the spark plugs to burn hot. You want certain things to be hot, but not the whole thing. Now, if you look at these two engines right here, you got the one on the left and the one on the right. Which one would you want in your car? How many people going the left?
Left.
How many people are going for the left?
On the left.
You called it right. See, this is easy. That's not worth $2,000 an hour. Give me a break. Okay. The one on the left is a normal, healthy brain. The one on the right is me in 2008. That is what we call crazy. That is crazy. That is nuts. Okay. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. I've sent over 40 people to go get scanned in the last 10, 12 years. Every one of them came back red hot, and every one of them thought they were normal. And they weren't. Okay. Now let me show you what's happening here. Now understand, how does this happen? How does it burn? The pituitary gland sits in the middle of the brain. That's Fountain Square. That's the Buckingham Fountain. So if you're flooding your brain with massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol, and your brain feels like soft room temperature butter, you are literally going to inflame it. You're going to burn it, just like you get a blister on your ankle. Okay, now the one on the left, okay, that's the normal healthy brain. That's the limbic system in the middle there. This guy is a 45-year-old guy. That's normal. That's just, 45-year-old guys don't sit around and giggle all day. Okay, 5-year-olds do, right? 5-year-old kids, toddlers giggle all day. I will tell you, introduce them to life and you abuse them for the next 40 years like we all have been. That's what happens right there. That's what happens. That's why 45-year-old guys don't sit around and giggle all day. Okay, and you see those guys? Those are your basal ganglia. Very important part of the brain. They burn way down in the bottom of your brain. Well, this guy right here's got some apprehension. That's normal. That's normal. If Fred Flintstone saw a new animal for the first time, you don't go up and pet it. Okay, right there, those basal ganglia. That is why humans go to the negative. All humans automatically go to the negative because it's a survival technique. I mean, if we were all together and we're doing this live, and then we get in our cars and we leave and we pull out onto a one-way street. Okay, you're going to pull out into a one-way street. Are you going to look both ways? Yeah, I've seen some good head nod going, absolutely, because inside there's a little voice in there saying, this might not be safe. That's Fred Flintstone talking to you. He's saying, it isn't safe. That is good. That is good. Now, what if you burn these things? Now, see right there? Look at the limbic system on me. That is at least 10 times inflamed. Now, understand, this is a literal inflammation, burned, damaged, okay? That's clinical depression. And does everybody here realize, I probably should have mentioned this, different parts of the brain do different things. Depending on what part of the brain that you damage, that is the clinical condition that you got. Okay. Now, let me just ask you, if somebody has depression, what almost always goes with it? It's depression and
Anxiety?
there you go. I can read it right over all your heads. Absolutely. Yeah. Anxiety. Okay. I bypassed, I ain't messing around here. I bypassed anxiety. I went right to panic attacks. These are bad. My basal ganglia are, oh my God, they are like 15 times inflamed. And you see the little white dot in the middle of the right basal ganglia? That's 20% hotter. That's lethal. That's lethal stuff. Okay. And this guy up here, this is what obsessive compulsive disorder looks like in the brain. Okay. It is an inflammation, a burning of the corpus callosum. Now, the corpus callosum, just a big word for bridge. You got a fiber bridge that connects your right and left hemisphere. So if you have a thought, like right now, as you hear me talking, you'll have an electrical spark, a little bit of neurotransmitter shot out, and this electrical signal will move back and forth across that bridge. Like horses, compared to horses, horses don't have a corpus callosum. The two hemispheres are completely disconnected. So if you cover up the right eye of a horse and get to know it, and then uncover that eye and cover up the left eye, that horse won't know who you are. It didn't transfer. Okay, makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's all mechanical, really. Now, what happens if you're like me and you have flooded your entire brain? And I want you to notice in my temporal lobes, look at that. It's all filled with anger, hot spots, okay? If I have a thought on the right side of my brain, it's going to hit that inflammation and it's going to get stuck. it gets stuck in there like it's stuck in the thicket. And you can't get off it, can't get off it, can't get off it, can't get off it. Now think about this. That's what we call your stick shift. You can't get off it, can't get off it. I'm still mad about things that happened 30 years ago. I mean, know somebody that's still mad about things that happened in high school and they're about to collect Social Security? That isn't normal. That's not Betty White. Okay. So what's this diamond pattern? That is a very typical pattern of post-traumatic stress disorder. Now understand, I had about 6 hours of intake that went with this of my symptoms. I talked to my wife, she spilled the guts on me and all this other stuff. I'll tell you right now, that is bad. Now, here's where there's hope. You would be hard pressed to find anybody whose brain was as damaged as mine. Very bad. That's my brain in 2020. All of the hot spots in the temporal lobes are gone. Okay. The OCD is completely cured. It's gone. I'm working down my basal ganglia to get back down to apprehension. But look at now, let me ask you, what looks worse? The depression, the limbic system in 2020 or 2008? Which one looks worse?
2008.
Yeah, 2020 is worse. You know why? I really got to do a better job of getting all the jackasses out of my life. And so I'm working on that now. Everybody's got something to work on. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to do. And understand, what a great comparison to Michael and I. Michael was born that way. I developed it because of abuse I'd gone through for my whole life. Okay. So this is a human thought. And this is what I want you to be focusing on, because I think if you can visualize it, you'll realize this is what you're doing. So you're growing those 100,000 new brain cells every month. So this is the birth of a new brain cell, two actually. Okay. You see the little electrical charge, little white lines there, and a little shot of neurotransmitter. Okay. That is a human thought. That's what's happening in your brain right now. So look at the neurons on the far left. Okay. The far left. They're long and skinny. That is a brand new neuron. You're growing a new neuron. We call that neurogenesis, brand new genesis. Now, if you put an electrical charge into soft room temperature butter, it's going to melt. So look at the next slide. Look at the next in the middle graphic. See how flat it is? Learning melts your brain. Learning is melting your brain, which is great because look how much more efficient it is. Okay. Have you ever heard, hey, it's just like riding a bike. You get back on, you learn, you pick it up right again, right? Now, your body might not move like it did when you were 20, but you got it there. That's because those neurons are still there. They're still flat. They're still efficient. And look up there. Look at the top of that neuron. See how it's growing a sprout because you're using it and using it and using it and using it and using it. You're growing a new synapse. That's called synaptogenesis. You can grow 10 to 100 new synapses, new sprouts every month. And look at the graphic on the far right. Look at that. There you go. Now that sprout will grow sprouts and the next sprout will grow sprouts and on and on and on and on and on. That is what has happened over the months and years to completely rewire my brain and Michael's brain. That's what we're really doing. Okay. So just give you a little example here. How many people, when you went to work every day, you drove to work and you had no clue how you got there? Just automatic.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, some of us on Saturday, we start to pull out and drive into work, right? Okay. That's because you've wired your brain to do that. That's what the brain, see, you've experienced this already. Now, if we transferred you, and let's say you all found new jobs over this weekend and you're going to start Monday, well, you might even get your GPS out to set it to where you got to go. But after one day, boom, then there's going to be another thought and another few grow and another few grow and another few grow and another few. That is a habit. This is what your brain naturally does. So let it do it. And so we're going to talk about creating a system that's going to work for you. You know, your brain is just like your heart. If you had a heart attack and you went to a cardiologist, we would all take the pills that the cardiologist gave us, wouldn't we? Yeah. But what would you think of the cardiologist who said, well, you take the pills and, you don't have to exercise, don't worry about water, just live your life the way you always had. You like barbecue, eat it up. What would you do with the cardiologist? How many people fire the cardiologist? Yeah, that is a stupid cardiologist. No cardiologist would ever tell you that. But we do that with your brain all the time. All the time. Psychiatrist says, well, here's your Wellbutrin. Why don't you go ahead? Nobody is talking about drinking half your weight in ounces in water every day. Getting distress out of your life. And what's that mean? Getting rid of jackasses. Okay, and I'll tell you right now, no job is worth dementia. No job is worth that. Okay, and so we're going to talk about a lot of things that you got to do. All right, and so sort of wrap this section up. Adrenaline and cortisol is not necessarily bad, but you don't want to drink water from a fire hydrant. Right. That right there, that little girl, that's going to kill her. Okay. That is worse than overeating, worse than smoking. It would be better if you smoked, overate, never exercised, didn't sleep, than to have that spray of adrenaline. Really, I want you to think gasoline. Okay. Now, what are we shooting for? These studies are amazing. We're learning so much about the human brain. And this guy's really good. He wrote this in Harvard Business Review. When you work with good people, or let's say you have people over for a cookout, or you're hanging out with good people, your brain releases these eustress chemicals. One of them is oxytocin. Okay. And it's the happiness chemical. Work should be therapy. You should love going into work. Nobody should get a tight feeling in their gut over the thought of going into that hellhole. Nobody. Because here are those chemicals. And this is what you want. And these chemicals, they're stronger. These chemicals are stronger than cortisol and adrenaline. These will knock them out. They truly will. And what are you releasing? Oxytocin, which is the happiness chemical. Dopamine, which is motivation. Okay. Serotonin. Serotonin cures depression. Okay. Endorphins. We've all heard of endorphins with the runner's high. Endorphins are painkillers that are stronger than morphine. That's that shot that you get. Okay. And telomerase. We never hear anything about telomerase. But telomerase is this goo that gets secreted when you hang around good people, when you go for a walk, when you engage in your hobbies, when you engage in altruistic activities. The more you give away, the more you get back. And that is true for everybody. Okay. Telomeres, and everybody understands what a strand of DNA looks like. It looks like a ladder, and there's two ends, and these the rungs that go up the ladder. Well, the two ends, every time a cell reproduces, okay, those chromosomes in your DNA, the tip of the telomeres erodes a little bit. And when you finally don't have any of those plastic tips on your DNA strands, there's nothing to hold the DNA strand together, and the whole thing just unravels. And that's what we call aging. That's why we do not recover from wounds as easily when we're older. But telomerase goes to the DNA strands, protects the telomeres, and helps them grow back. You're getting younger. That is the secret of Betty White. I always love this. What's the secret of old age? Not hanging around jackasses. That's the secret of and keeping this great attitude, because that is chemical. Everything's chemicals. Now, let me ask you, you think most people walk around every day knowing that they are absolutely destroying their brains?
No.
I don't think they do. I really don't. Not at all. Okay, so And we're going to go through some of these here a little bit. And I've got a lot more of this waiting for you on my website. This is my program. Okay, this is my program. And you understand, everything I'm trying to do is trying to maximize the amount of eustress chemicals in my body and getting the cortisol out. Looking for a job is actually harder than working the job. I believe that because I've been there. And I will tell you right now, it is burned into my memory. Absolutely. So as you're looking for a job, you need to really start thinking about how you can get these things into your daily activities. It is important to go out and garden. It's important. It's important to meditate. Okay, so first of all, Betty White, I just love this because the story I got from my aunt. She said, someone would come up to Betty White and they'd say, "You want to hear something really bad?" And she'd say, "No." No. It's like when somebody comes up to you and something smells really bad. It's like, "Oh, this smells terrible. Here, smell this." No, that's live bacteria. I don't want to smell that. You gotta be kidding me. Okay. You don't really have to hang out with everybody you hang out with. Okay. Sometimes they're a relative. How many people have folks in your life that just make you feel bad about yourself? Then you can't come here no more. Now, let me tell you, what would you do if somebody came up, took a drag of a cigarette, and blew it right in your face? It's better that somebody does that than to release cortisol and adrenaline into your system. It is that lethal. And it's that lethal. So that's the first thing. Second, get your blood and fasting blood work. I do that a couple times a year. Hormones go bad. They do. I mean, thyroids go bad. Testosterone drops, and on and on and on. This is a big one. Positive thoughts, friends, pets. Get your hobbies. Mine's photography. I also like gardening. I like to garden in flower hanging baskets. Okay. It's really funny because now remember, I had raging OCD. And so I came back in 2008 and I started gardening. And then into 2009, I bought, these beautiful wrought iron baskets and hung on fences and all kinds of stuff. And I've got like an acre behind my house here with a big red barn and everything. And then I counted all of the baskets that I had hanging everywhere, and it was 57. And my son was complaining about it. He says, "Oh, my dad's got more flowers than a gay guy." So it's like, okay, I think that's a compliment. Meditation, new lifestyle for diet. We're going to look at that. Regimen of vitamins and minerals. The food supply we have today is crap. It's crap. If you ate an orange from 1970 for the vitamin A, you would have to eat 6 to 8 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin A. Okay, our manufactured farming is killing us. And it explains the tremendous spike in diabetes. You got to drink half your weight in ounces in water every day. I got 4 of these. Okay, they're as big as my head. Okay, each one of these things holds 32 ounces. And every morning I fill up all 4 of them. Okay, and man, by the end of the day, they're done. You're flushing all of this out. You're flushing your brain. Remember, 20%, that's 25% of anything you eat is going to go to your brain. Okay. Get enough sleep. Sleep is a big deal. Oh, how many people, you ever so often, like a nap? It's actually good for your system. It's a nice circadian rhythm. Okay. Aerobic exercise. Now, I'm not saying you got to go run a marathon, shoot basketball, whatever, strength training. And sex. Dr. Amen recommends sex 2 to 3 times a week. Now, not just with any trollop that you find wandering around the Kmart or whatever, you meaningful, ongoing relationships. Okay. And if that's a problem, go to your doctor, get a prescription, and hand it to your spouse. Monthly massages. And I tell you, that worked for me. That worked for me. So you get your physical. Okay. Big deal. Because stress can do all kinds of things. Fasting blood work, and make sure that they're checking your vitamin D, because vitamin D drops, you're a candidate for diabetes. Another thing is to check your thyroid. Now, a standard blood work does check your thyroid, but you got a couple of T cells wandering around out there. One is you've got these T-free cells. They're just floating around out there. The free floaters. Okay. You want to check and talk to your doctor. Doctor will know all about this. You want to check your regular thyroid, your regular T cells, but you want to check your free floaters. Because what can happen is your thyroid could be struggling and your free floaters are filling in for it. But you see, your thyroid's in big trouble. And when you run out of free floaters, you're using them all up, your reserves, you're going to crash. So if your thyroid can test perfectly fine, but it's not because it's using up all your reserves. And I will tell you, fixing a thyroid, little pill every day. I had people about ready to get fired because they were just jackasses. Well, you'd be grouchy too if your thyroid was shot. Okay. Thoughts, hobbies, and friends. Okay, this is a big one. Big, big, big. And remember, this is going to knock that adrenaline and cortisol out. And just perfect example, that's me and my youngest son, who actually just graduated. We just had his party last weekend. He just graduated from Ohio State. That's my youngest one, Nicholas. And we're at a Queenie concert. Okay. I'll tell you, going to concerts, if that's not your thing, find something else. Okay. I got a cousin who goes to tractor pulls. You know, I'd rather have root canal, but that does it for him. But not my thing. Okay. But can you just let me look at it? Okay. So can you just feel the oxytocin, the dopamine? Oh, and by the way, you go to a concert, you always get the picture and you always get the shirt. Always. Okay. Now this guy, Dr. Dean Ornish, he is worth Googling. He's worth Googling. Close, loving relationships prevent depression, anxiety, suicide. Suicide is nothing more than a damaged brain. Now, I want to give a little caveat there. I certainly understand somebody whose life is completely over, Dr. Kevorkian. Okay, so I don't want to get into that debate. I understand that's not necessarily a mental or brain issue, but most people's suicide is. Heart disease, infections. If you are constantly flooding your body with cortisol and adrenaline, first of all, your body's going to inflame. That's bad. What else is going to happen? You're going to use up all of your T cells that are out there to eat the pathogens. So your resistance drops. You get infections. They don't heal. Hypertension, high blood pressure, and cancer. All of this is coming from the massive amounts of cortisol and adrenaline. People have no idea how dangerous that is. And think about this. Let's say you start a new job. And if somebody in any office in this country, in any of the cities that we're in right now, starts smoking and just relaxing and they're not working at a tobacco company, but they're sitting there smoking at their desk. Would somebody go and talk to that person and ask them to stop smoking?
Yes.
Yeah, in most states, it's illegal, unless you're in Kentucky or North Carolina, okay, where they got really strong tobacco lobby, okay, they would say something. But we let bullies run around and spread their disease like Pepe Le Pew, and nobody says anything. I'll tell you, I love the smokers. You know what a polite smoker does? They'll sit there and they'll smoke and blow it away from you. Okay, what do the bullies do? They emotionally vomit all over you the worst, most caustic material that they can find, and that's cortisol and adrenaline. Okay, so you want really good cortisol or eustress chemicals? Pets. No, I always love this. Do you ever get a free pet? I was like, oh, we got a free one. Oh, God. Right. Okay. Then you got to get the thing fixed. Then there's shots and everything. This is my co-author, Harry. Okay. I am a big cat person and a dog person. Okay, so Harry would sit right on my lap as I wrote and worked on things. Okay. At one point, we were up to 4 cats and 2 dogs. Cats are therapy. Absolutely. You just feel your blood pressure go down. Cats are great for just cuddling around. And these are our 2 dogs. Okay. Ella and Sophie. They've passed away. And we have a new dog now, Gemma. Okay. We are always going to have cats and dogs. Always. Okay. Those cats and dogs live better than I do. Okay. But I'll tell you, dogs and cats are great. Dogs will sit there and cuddle with you, lower your blood pressure, release those eustress chemicals. And you can also take them outside and play soccer. Take them for a walk. Dogs are smarter than us. They always want to go for a walk. And I'll tell you, the first thing I did when I came back and I found out how nuts I really was, I signed up for Sirius Radio and I signed up for I programmed in all the comedy stations. Laughter releases massive amounts of eustress chemicals. And I just love this story about Lincoln. Now, he didn't know anything about neurology or anything. We didn't know anything about this stuff. But in 1965, when he was running, 64, running for president, he was so nervous and everything. He sat off by himself during the election and read a joke book. Read a book of jokes. They thought, this guy doesn't care. What's wrong with him? He doesn't care. He had serious depression. They called it melancholy back then. He realized that he felt better when he laughed. He felt better. I'll tell you right now, Sirius Radio comedy stations, and I'll tell you, I told my family, if you ever aren't sure what to get me for Christmas or just a present, here's a list of comedians I like. I get me their CDs because they will not go to waste. Okay. And I listen to them so much, I got them memorized. Okay. So I'll tell you, he instantly knew what was going to make him. Okay. He's starting to get some strategies. I got a bad day. What do you want to do? I want to watch a comedy. I want to watch Young Frankenstein. I want to go do these types of things. I'm not going to lay on the couch, feel bad, and drink a beer. No, I'm going to go out and water my plants. Diet. Oh my God. This is one of the biggest killers. Okay, right there. Okay. Your brain burns 25% of everything that you eat. And just think about this. Your brain doesn't have any fat deposits for storage of energy. None. Okay. It immediately burns whatever you eat. So, think about it. Let's say we're all together and it's breakfast and I'm going to treat everybody. Okay. Everybody is going to get their own dozen Krispy Kreme donuts. And we're going to nuke them for that 8 seconds. Oh, this is just heaven. Okay. You got these, you could just shove them in there. Okay. And everybody gets a Mountain Dew to wash it down with. Okay. So you sit there for literally 1.5 to 2 minutes. How are you going to feel?
Cool.
Get headachy and you probably sweat a little. Oh yeah. 25% of that went right to your brain and it's shortened everything out. Okay. Americans eat at fast food 25% of the time. 25% of most people's meals comes from fast food. And I'll tell you, has anybody here ever see the documentary Super Size Me? Oh yeah, good. If you have not seen this, you got to watch this thing. Oh my God. Malcolm's Spurlock. Yeah. He ate McDonald's 3 times a day for 30 days. And if they said supersize me, he did. And he went to his doctor. He's in superior physical condition, cardiovascular, everything, fat, everything. And his doctor said, well, it's not going to be good for you. You're going to put on weight. You're not going to feel good, but it's not going to kill you. Oh, yes, it almost did. And I know people have been smoking for years. It's worse than smoking. So he gained 24 pounds. He had heart palpitations. His heart was beating irregular. Liver failure. That was the big one. At day 22, his doctor said, you got to stop doing this. It's going to kill you. You're going to need a liver transplant. In just 22 days, 3 weeks, He had shoved so much sugar and fat into a perfectly healthy liver that it was shutting down. Depression. You know why he's gotten depression, don't you? He's filling his brain with fat and sugar. That explains the mood swings. And I tell you, he's becoming sexually dysfunctional. Hey, heart attack, liver failure. Hey, that's one thing, but man, don't be going there. This is way off. Okay. He ate about 30 pounds of sugar. That is what we're doing to ourselves. Of course it tastes good. It's killing you. And I'll tell you, my wife's an x-ray tech at Children's Hospital, and it just drives me crazy. These parents come in and say, hey, if you do a good job and you lay still, we'll go to McDonald's. Oh my God, why don't you just kick the kid right in the groin? Okay, just give him a good one, right in the groin. It would be kinder. No, your kids aren't garbage disposals. And this really ticks me off. Their brain is still forming. Do you want that kid to be slow? Do you want that kid to be stupid? That brain is still forming, and you're destroying it with crap. No. Give them yogurt. They love it, and it's good for them. There's all kinds of good things out there. Now, one thing let me just also mention is you go to the grocery store, you want high levels of protein, low carb, and low saturated fat. Okay, fat is not necessarily bad. Unsaturated fat is good for you. So when you buy your margarine or anything or butter, I want unsaturated fat, not saturated. And you easily remember it. Saturated fat is saturated with fat. Bad for you. Okay, think barbecue. Okay, but unsaturated fat is going to help build up the myelin sheath throughout your body and in your brain. It's good for you. Okay. And I'll tell you, I want you to take a couple of hours, take a legal pad, read the labels, walk around the outside. You got to find vegetables that you like. What is good for your heart? That's all you need to know. Whatever's good for your heart is good for your brain. And we've had that drilled into us. Well, put it this way. When I was growing up, we had this food chart that today is a death wish, right? Hey, eat all the whole milk you want. Okay. Oh yeah, it'd kill you today. Now, even if you eat right, our food supply is not what it was when I was growing up. It just wasn't. And you can blame McDonald's and fast food for what they've done to our meats filled with hormones and everything else. You can blame them for the E. coli. You understand how we get E. coli on our spinach? Okay, we have these CAFOs all over the country where they crowd these pigs and chickens and cows in so tight they can't move, and they force feed them corn, shoot them full of antibiotics, shoot them full of hormones, and they stand in their own waste all day. It rains. All this waste runs into the river, runs down the river. The farmer down the river sprays all that water on their spinach. That's how we get E. coli. If they got rid of all the CAFOs in this country, you would never hear of E. coli again. No kid would die at Jack in the Box because they ate crap in their burger. Okay, now having said all that, manufactured farming has also done the same thing. You can't possibly get the vitamins and minerals in your body that you need. Okay, now, has anybody ever heard someone say, that's just expensive urine? Just, and I get that from doctors all the time. I mean, heaven forbid, most doctors would actually read the Journal of American Medical Association. I mean, I got a subscription because I know they don't read it. They'd rather go golf. Okay, now, this is a brain scan. This is a blood flow scan. Okay, this is an MMA fighter. Okay, now, he's not getting good blood flow. He's laying down, and look at the scan on the far left. Okay, you see the frontal lobes at the top. He's laying down with his base of his head on the pillow, and he's looking up. You're looking through his chin at the underside of his brain. Okay, now you see the upper right portion of his frontal lobe there. See that hole? He's not getting any blood flow. That's not really a hole, but you're not getting any blood flow. Okay, so he took a vitamin packet. Okay, now this is not going out and taking a Centrum. Okay, there are all kinds of vitamins, all kinds of minerals. They all have different absorption rates. They all have different molecular structures. There is no possible way that you're going to get the vitamins and minerals from one pill. Okay, so you take this packet of vitamins and minerals. Now look at the scan on the right. Okay, let me see here. Can you see that? Okay, look how full that is. It filled everything in. That is after only 2 hours. I tell you, I take 2 packets a day. I am not messing around. Okay, it's my brain. So what do you want? You want to go find multivitamin and mineral packets that are, Scientific American recommends them. American Medical Association recommends them. JAMA recommends them. Everybody is on board with these things. Anybody who is, I don't know, informed. Okay. Now, you want a packet that follows GMP. What's that mean? It means the manufacturing processes are clean. You don't want any little rat droppings in your vitamins. That's bad. Okay. I tell you, some of this stuff, not everybody should be turning out vitamins and minerals in food. Okay, they really shouldn't. Okay, so one that follows GMP, and understand how drugs work in our country. If I'm going to have Wellbutrin approved, I'm going to do all the tests on it. I'm then going to submit it to US Pharmacopoeia, United States Pharmacopoeia, USP. They're going to look it over and they're going to say, yes, these are what they say they are. They do what they say they do. Then it goes to the FDA for approval. Well, if I am Shackley, Advocare, GNC, and the Vitamin Shop, I don't want to forget about them. The Amen clinics, I buy mine directly from the Amen clinics, but actually that's what I use, because I ain't messing around. I'm getting the same vitamin packets that the NFL football players use. Okay, but they all work. They're all good. You don't have to worry about the GMP. These folks, they all follow GMP, and the reason they're more expensive is because they send their vitamins and mineral packets to US Pharmacopoeia. They just don't go on to the FDA because they don't have to. So there's quality that you want. And I can tell you right now, man, my whole family is on those things. I am on a regular shipment. They come to the house and everybody takes these things. And if not, I make their life miserable. Okay. What can you start doing right now? Right now. Drink half your weight in ounces every day. If anyone tells you that is too much, walk away. Walk away, because they don't know what they're talking about. Let me tell you right now, the book I just published on healing the human brain, if I can't enter something into evidence in court, I don't say it. I will get challenged on everything. I had somebody challenge me once that the Taj Mahal was not in India. I'm like, really? Really? He said, well, he said, that's a Muslim temple. India is Hindu. Since 1948, do you know how old the Taj Mahal is? You've been there? Okay. No. Let me tell you, this book had over 470 citations originally and only 260 pages. I'll tell you, if I tell you something, I can prove it. I got studies, I got documentation. I am telling you right now, half your weight in ounces every day. You might want to stop about 6, 7 o'clock at night, or you'll be up all night peeing. Okay. But I tell you right now, that flushes your body. It flushes your brain. If you do not like water, my wife hates water. I like water, but I can tell you, I love my sweet drops. And Amazon. Oh my God. It's like I got my personal butler. It's just, my Amazon guy will come right to my door, and sometimes it's waiting there the next morning. And I got these this from the Amen clinics. Stevia. It's 1,000 times sweeter than sugar, and no carbs. And as of yet, the real stevia, not the fake stuff, but real stevia, no side effects. Okay. And I can tell you, there are more flavors for sweet drops. I got I got grape, I got orange, I got caramel, chocolate. Oh my gosh, I love my water. Okay. Makes sense? And exercise. Now, I don't mean you have to go kill yourself. Everybody likes something. My best friend lives in South Carolina. He's a physical therapist. He just picked up pickleball. Yeah, no idea what those. They actually make pickleball shoes, which was kind of funny. It's like, what? You can't wear your, regular, tennis shoes out there? Okay. You gotta do something. I mean, you gotta do something. You gotta find something you like. Because when you exercise, you release something in your body called BDNF. Not just BDNF, it's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, but don't worry about that. Okay. And it's going to feed those 100,000 brain cells. You're going to grow 100,000 new brain cells with all these things you're doing. And this is miracle grow. It's going to help them grow. If you do not get BDNF into your body, those 100,000 brain cells will die. And that means you also lost those sprouts. You lost 1 million connections. Walk. Okay. 150 minutes a week of moderate aerobic activity. What's that? Walk. I got a guy, it's really kind of funny. He has 3 dachshunds, little hairy wiener dogs. It looks like they're ready for winter. He's got 3 of these things. They're like dust mops. He walks them all over the neighborhood. It's actually pretty funny. Got another guy that walks his cat. I tried that once, and it's just like dragging the cat down the street that somebody's going to call PETA. It really doesn't go well. So I take my dog, okay? Or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise. Okay, I don't profess injury, but I'll tell you, never buy exercise equipment new. Never, because you live in America. Why would you ever buy exercise equipment new? Okay. Most exercise equipment holds laundry. Okay, so do you all have played against sports where you are? Like secondhand sports shops? You got those? All my stuff is secondhand. All of it. Boxing Bob. I'll tell you, I boxed in college. I'll tell you. You smack him, and this is really good. Okay, particularly with a little sticker down there, you hit him in the groin. That's fun. You smack the hell out of him. I'll tell you, you're done in 5 minutes. Oh man, I'll tell you, a brutal sport is boxing. And I tell you, you go and you hit him or kick him, you're going to get a sweat going, and it's going to feel good. And I'll bet you can get him for $20. Okay. Perfect. I got a little basketball court out in my backyard. Okay. I go out there. Now, if you notice there, I'm not a towering type of individual. And just to tell you, I'm a lousy basketball player. I am bad. Okay. Doesn't matter. I'm out there so that I can just shoot hoops and enjoy it and have fun. And it's good for you. And I'll sometimes play soccer with my dog. Okay. I've noticed I can't keep up with the dog. But the cool thing about a dog is that you can run him into the ground. That dog will wear out before you will. You've got more endurance than the dog. And if you can keep up with the dog, you're stuck. Okay. So strength training twice a week. That doesn't mean you need to go get weights. I got rubber bands. I can lay in my TV room and do stretching. Okay. It's easy. And sleep. Sleep is the quickest way to tell how healthy your brain is how well you sleep. Quickest way, right there. Okay. In 1900, Americans got an average of 9 hours of sleep a night. That was great. Today, we average about 6. That's terrible. That's going to affect the blood flow to your brain. You sleep less than 6 hours, reduced blood flow to the brain. And we're trying to maximize the blood flow to your brain. That's what all this stuff does. We sleep in 1.5 hour increments. Okay. That's a REM cycle. So at the end of a REM cycle, that's when we dream. When you're dreaming, that's when the brain cleans out the excess cortisol and adrenaline. Little scrubbers literally come out and clean up the mess. So if you're not sleeping good and you wake up grouchy, you still got cortisol and adrenaline in there chewing on the wires. Don't do that. And I always get this. It's like, well, what are the things that you did? I completely changed the way I live. And I like it better. It's better. And you discover all kinds of things like popsicles. You discover yogurt. You discover, does anybody there have Kroger's near you? Kroger? Yeah, Kroger, biggest grocery store chain in the world. Yeah.
We have one of their brands, yeah.
Yeah, check out their Carb Master stuff. Their protein drinks, their yogurts. Oh my God, that is like wonderful. So what's your brain look like? Now, very few people that I talk to have to go get a brain scan, okay? And I actually advise people, why don't you try doing this for 6 to 8 months? Try doing it. You will feel better. You'll sleep better. And because if you go get a scan and you see, oh my God, look at that. You're going to do all this stuff anyway. So why don't you try this first? And you might not need it. Make sense? That is a lot of stuff. Very, very ambitious, but questions, comments, deep religious concerns over anything we talked about at all. It's all fair game. Everybody got her?
No concerns. I mean, it was all laid out clearly and made sense. Some things I do, some things I'll start doing.
And I tell you what, I tell my folks that I'm coaching, pick 3 things. Don't do 10 things because you won't do them.
So, you know what I want to ask?
Yeah.
How come your basketball court is over grass, not the driveway?
Because I'm so terrible, I don't necessarily want the neighbors to see what I'm doing. Our front, well, my wife wouldn't let me either. But that's part of our backyard. I've got bought an acre behind us and it's a big red barn. So I got lots of room back there. So I just wheeled it back in there, fill it with water. And nobody bothers me. Nobody can see me. We live in this city, but the way our lot is laid out, like we have regular street and everything in front, but in back, we get these huge lots because the farm that was cut up originally to form the city, they were like 2 or 3 acre lots. Back then, 100 years ago, or 150 years ago, that was a small lot, was 2 acres. How could you get by neighbors closer than 3 acres? Well, I've got all this land behind me now. And so I've got this room back there. So yeah, it's in the back. So I can go shoot my hoops and I can play soccer with the dog and stuff like this. It's just a really nice private getaway and no cell phones. Never take my cell phone. Never. Nothing is that important unless somebody dies. And believe me, I can't bring them back. So it'll wait until I'm done. So good question. Yeah. Well, if you go to scottwarwick.com, I got all these videos for you that give you a lot more information. I encourage you to go and check that stuff out because I want people to use this stuff and get better. And if you want to sign up for the Lunch and Learn, sign up. And even if you miss it, we start them at noon so the West Coast people can get in there at 9.
Okay.
And we record them all. They're all recorded. So if somebody misses them, that's fine. I've got about 3,000 people that have signed up for them. And we'll get a couple hundred for maybe 100 to 200 for the session itself. But then we'll get several hundred people later that go listen because it's kind of tough to make a half-hour commitment to go do that. It goes quick, a half an hour, 30, 40 minutes. But I really enjoy them. And I think the audience enjoys them too, because every month we're looking at something that's going on in the world and how that is going to affect your brain.